conversion, that and more coming up. Welcome to Newsmakers, a show where we go behind the headlines each and every week to bring you interviews with pastors, entertainers, politicians, and other notable figures. On today's Newsmakers, we start with Lola Sheen, daughter of Denise Richards and Charlie Sheen. Now, she recently became a Christian, and she's joining us today to talk all about her powerful journey. Let's welcome Lola to Newsmakers. Well, I'm so excited to chat with you. So much to talk about. You recently shared photos of your baptism, and not just photos, but really your testimony.
Yes.
What has it been like to get the reaction that you've gotten to that?
It's been so encouraging and so overwhelming, but in the best way possible. I never thought that that would happen so quickly, and it just shows that God really can do anything so unexpectedly. It's really just been so encouraging and so supportive because I felt so alone in the beginning of my walk, and now I get to share what Jesus has done in my life, and I've had so much support from everybody. It's just so sweet. And
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm just so grateful.
Well, you talked a lot in your post about, hitting rock bottom and struggling. And I think so many people relate to that, not just in your generation, but I think every generation, people right now in this culture where we are who feel lost and confused. What was it for you? Talk a little bit about before finding Christ, what was going on in your life?
Yeah, I grew up with parents who were in the industry. And I always felt super alone. My whole life, I just always felt like I could never find security and never find just something that felt like a home. And when I turned 16, that's when I really struggled with my mental health. And I had a very, very long season of dealing with depression. And I came out of that. I did not find Jesus at that time. And then when I turned 18 is when I really, really started to struggle with depression. And I feel like for me, it was just like, because when I was 16, I started therapy. And I was in therapy for almost 3 years. And so when I was 18, I was like, okay, like nothing's worked. Like I've been in therapy. I feel like I just don't have anybody. And that's when I was like, I just don't know what to do with my life. I also really struggled with feeling so insecure and very unworthy. And then it was almost just like Jesus really, really did find me. And that's what changed me, is like he chose me first. And it was the first time someone chose me when I wasn't like the best version of myself. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I have to ask you too, because you grew up in a very famous family with two very famous parents, right? And a lot comes with that, a lot of attention, a lot of pressure. Was that difficult for you? It sounds like there may have been elements that were tough, just being in the spotlight, even though, when you're the kid of a celebrity, you don't choose it, but it just comes with it.
Yeah, it does. It's so, I love that you said that, because you don't choose it. It's just like, it was just my normal. And it was very difficult for me. My sister, I have an older sister, Sammy, and she has always loved like that whole thing, like the fame and everything. It was always very easy for her. For me, I almost had like imposter syndrome. Like I never felt like it was my thing, sort of.
Sure.
And I always wanted to feel normal. That was a big thing. I would always go to my friends' houses and be like, oh, like their parents aren't famous, you know what I mean? And so it took a very big toll on me, especially with feeling very looked at too, because, I would go to school when I was younger, and when a lot of things were going on with my family in the news, it was like, my mom did protect me, but that didn't stop me from finding out things from my friends or whatever. And so they would come to me and be like, oh my gosh, I just heard this about your family, but I didn't know yet. And
that's got to be so difficult.
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so Yeah, the Lord has really, really helped me with finding security in all of this because it's so out of my control. And it can be so fake sometimes. I feel like that was a big thing for me, is a lot of people can be like, oh my gosh, like I wish I had your life. You must be so happy all the time because, you have all these opportunities. And that doesn't mean I'm not grateful. I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I have. But there's a whole other side that's so dark. And a lot of people I feel like don't know that, who haven't experienced, being in the industry.
So your podcast, and people can be praying for you on that too. If you're watching, listening to this, you can be praying about college, about the
Thank
podcast, but
you.
where will people be able to listen to the show, and when will they be able to listen to it or watch it?
So my podcast is called Heavenly Bonded. And that name, it's so crazy because I remember I was sitting with Jesus on the name and I was like, okay, Lord, what should I name this? And I wrote down like 10 different names and nothing felt right. And then it literally came to my mind, Heavenly Bonded. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. And so, yeah, it's going to be coming out on YouTube for now. Hopefully I will actually get in I hope to get into like a real professional studio one day. I really admire the reason why I got also the desire to do this podcast after I found Jesus is I found these Christian influencers. Their names are Angela and Ariel. They have Girls Gone Bible podcast. I don't know if you've heard of
Yes.
it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so they are my biggest inspirations. I seriously would do anything to get on their podcast one day. So that's a goal of mine with this podcast, that I somehow connect with them because I look up to their podcast so much. And that's what really
Well, we'll have to
inspires
make
me.
sure they see this and they hear that,
Oh,
so
I
then they
hope
can,
so.
hopefully have you on.
Yeah.
I want to have you back again. I
Oh, I
so
would,
appreciate you
yeah.
taking the time, sharing this journey. It is incredibly personal. And I know, after spending your whole life in the public eye, being able to share something like this the way you have has been really amazing. And I just appreciate you doing that today.
Yeah, this was so fun.
Please continue to pray for Lola as she embarks on her Christian journey. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Next up, we speak with Bevelyn Williams, a pro-life activist who was recently released from prison after being pardoned by President Donald Trump. Let's welcome Bevelyn to Newsmakers to share her story. Bevelyn, you were recently pardoned by President Donald Trump. How did you first hear that was going to be happening?
Well, there was word or buzz about it on Twitter. At some point, Charlie Kirk had retweeted that I would be one of the people pardoned. My name was like first on the list or up there. And my husband was talking about it. And so we just didn't know what day, but I knew Trump wasn't going to let me sit in that prison. If he won, he was going to get me out. I knew that.
What was going through your mind and your heart once you realized, okay, this is happening. This is going to be real. I'm going to get out. I mean, 41 months is a long time. What was going through your mind?
Oh my God. I was praising God. I was in the middle of my cell block, screaming, praying in the spirit, and praising God. Because once again, he delivered. Once again, and it's crazy because the week before that, or I think 2 weeks before that, God was talking to me about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and also Daniel. And he was like, when I told you no weapon formed against you shall prosper, Daniel did go in there then. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were thrown in that furnace. But what was scheduled to happen to them did not come to pass. And he was basically weighing it on me like, listen, it's not going to happen. You getting out and seeing your daughter at 5 years old and missing most of her younger years, it's not going to happen.
How long did you end up serving based on when you were convicted and went to prison? How many months was that?
3 months and some change, I think. 3 months and like 8 days.
And you have a baby. You have a two-year-old, right? I mean, you have a small baby. So that's why you said 5. She would have been 5 years old when you were done with this. Okay, let's talk about what led to all of this. For those who don't know the backstory, what was it that led to the charges, that led to the FACE Act claims, that led to you being imprisoned?
Well, in 2020, I had a Jesus Matters rally. Okay, it was a 2-day rally. At this rally, police were present. Some woman claimed that I had slammed her hand in the door and that I had blocked the door, which both was not true. The police were present. I never got arrested. I never got a citation. There's even a video going around on Facebook where I have recorded an officer saying I never blocked the doors, right? So what was peculiar about my case is that they waited 2 years to prosecute me right after Roe versus Wade had been overturned to the states. And Letitia James had actually sued me for that rally and got an injunction on me, which kept me from being within 30 feet of the Planned Parenthood in New York, or I would be charged $5,000. So what they did was they sued me federally in a federally civil case. And then right after that, they charged me criminally in the case. So they had claimed, but in this lawsuit, they never claimed that I harmed anybody or any hand. That wasn't in the lawsuit. By the time it became federal, now it was like, oh, well, she hurt someone. But what they don't realize is that the woman who claimed that I slammed her hand in the door did not go to an urgent care until 5 days later, and they still found me guilty.
So do you feel, when you look at this situation, that Roe v. Wade being overturned was a catalyst in your case being sort of ramped up against you?
Absolutely. That and also Biden being in office. Roe versus Wade being overturned, and also with Biden having the full power and influence of our federal government, it gave everybody the green light to kind of hem us up. What people have to understand about when you're charged with a crime, that judge, whatever judge you get, if that judge is biased against you, it can play a humongous role in how you win your case. Judges have the power to deny certain admittance of evidence. Judges have the power to hinder any arguments. We were denied our ability to argue freedom of speech in the First Amendment. We were denied certain evidence to display, like the officer saying that I never blocked because the prosecutors called it hearsay. So by time we had went to trial, the judge had already edited what would be presented to the jury. And a lot of it worked in the prosecutor's favor.
You know, what went through your mind? You spent over 3 months, in prison. Did you have anger? I mean, were there parts of you that said you would have done something differently, or did you really feel like this was not fair? It was handled improperly. I mean, how did you deal with all the complex emotions that come along with something like this?
Well, the thing is, I'm a Christian. I'm never gonna sit and be a bitter individual when I know that prosecution comes with a package. I knew that when I signed up. I knew that when I carried my cross. He said, count the cost, and he meant it. Not for people who are just, if you're a mediocre Christian, you won't handle it. But if you really are serving God, it's going to happen. I really was persecuted for my faith. So really, I was not ashamed of why I was there. I never in my mind thought, man, I shouldn't have did it. And if anything, the prayer constantly while I was in prison was for peace, for shalom. It's traumatizing to be in that prison. I woke up in shock. I don't know if you've ever lost like a family member, but for anybody who ever has, when my dad died for like 6 months, I would wake up in shock that he was really gone. I still have moments like that where it'll hit me in prison. While I was in prison, I was laying in bed and it hit me. Oh my God, my dad is gone. In the same way, when I was in prison for those 3 months, it would hit me every day. Oh my God, I'm in prison. And I would have to just count on God to give me the peace I needed to push forward.
Well, we're going to have you back soon to tell more of your backstory. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Keep Bevelyn and her family in your prayers as she is jumping back into pro-life ministry. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. For our final segment, we are sitting down with an educator, Marisol Arroyo Castro, as well as her attorney, Keisha Russell with First Liberty Institute. They claim Marisol has been forced to take down a crucifix from her workspace wall, and they're fighting back. Let's welcome them to Newsmakers to break it all down. Marisol, thanks so much for joining us. I want to start by just talking a little bit about your teaching career. How long have you been an educator?
I've been teaching for 32 years. This was my 32nd year.
Wow. That's an amazingly long career. My wife is a teacher. I know it's an incredible job. It's a difficult job, and more than 3 decades is a long time to be doing it. Now, we're talking today because you were recently put on leave, and we're going to get into all the reasons why and the intricacies of this, but take us through the events that led up to this.
Well, it was a regular day. I'm sitting on my desk at lunch and opening my email, and I get a text from an email from my supervisor asking me to come and see him and bring union rep for a meeting regarding my cross. So that was shocking in itself. I didn't know what to expect.
So they asked you to come. Now, you had this crucifix in your workspace. Describe where it was in your workspace for us.
Well, when I come into the room and I sit down, it was right to my right side, so that I could turn my face and look at it and see it there. It was right there, parallel to where I'm sitting on the wall.
And so people understand you had it on the wall there. Just so everyone understands, why did you have it there? What was the significance of that for you?
I had it there because it was important to me. I had, growing up, my grandmother made a big fuss about crosses and the Bible and how holy they were and how you needed to have them wherever you are. And I didn't even think anything of it. I just always had it. Like, it was my comfort zone. It was my place to be. It was just there. It was like routine. Like, if somebody asks you, why do you have your hand there? Because I do.
Exactly, because it's important.
Yeah.
So I'm going to... Well, Keisha, I want to come to you in a moment on the legalities of this. But Marisol, this obviously had been, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, in your space for a number of years. Had there been any other issue before this December 6th text message? Was there a history of problems with this crucifix? Were you told to take it down before? Take us through some of that. Never
at all. I always had it there since I was like teaching 4th grade, 3rd, 6th, 7th. Kids will come up to me, ask me about it. I will tell them that's my cross. Why is Jesus on it? Because he was crucified. Questions that kids would ask. I moved it every time I moved rooms. It was not really anything. I thought it was common. I thought it was normal to have it.
Well, and in these spaces, Keisha, I'll come to you. In these spaces, these desk areas for teachers, are people allowed to have other displays? What sort of other displays do teachers have in these spaces?
So we have people who celebrate the sporting team that they like, the sports team they like. There's Baby Yoda. There's all kinds of things. What you would expect a teacher to have in their personal desk space, pictures of family, etc. And that means that space is that teacher's private expression. So the district cannot censor it. And in this case, if they're allowing all the other teachers to put secular things in their workspaces, then they can't ban Marisol's crucifix. That is a violation of the free speech clause. And that's just the first constitutional provision that the school district is breaking, because there are several other laws that they're breaking here.
Well, what was Keisha, when you first heard about this case at First Liberty, what was your reaction to the details as you understood them?
Well, I was outraged because, and it's just very frustrating because First Liberty has been doing this work a very long time. And we just spent 9 years fighting for Coach Joseph Kennedy in Bremerton School District, Supreme Court win. And you would think that because that case was so big that people would understand that the government doesn't own you just because you work for them. And in this situation, I think these facts are even easier than what was going on with Coach Kennedy. So I don't understand really why the district feels the need to bully this teacher and try and get her to take down a crucifix when she has every right to have it on that wall.
Yeah, and so Keisha, help us understand right now where things stand, because Marisol is on leave. Take us through the request that you all have for her in her position, and what happens if the district does not back down and reinstate her.
Sure. So our demand letter requested that the school district leave Marisol alone, leave her crucifix alone, and treat her with the same respect that they treat these other teachers who have all kinds of things in their personal workspaces. So far, the district has pushed back. They do not agree with our position, which is totally fine, but we are trying to give them time to come to their senses because, as you're fully aware in the Coach Kennedy case, Bremerton School District was just as stubborn, and I can guarantee you that right now they're saying to themselves that it wasn't worth it to fight this case for 9 years and pay millions and millions of dollars in taxpayer money when ultimately you're absolutely wrong. And so here, I'm hoping that the district will come to their senses. If they don't, we will sue them in federal court.
And Marisol, are you willing to take that case as far as you need to win?
Yeah, my intention is for people to know that is not against the Constitution, that it is not, and that they need to know that because that's important because they're using the Constitution against us and it's not true. The Constitution was meant to protect religious liberty, not to hinder it.
Well, Marisol and Keisha, really appreciate you breaking this down. We'll continue to keep up with you as new developments unfold in this case. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
You can read more about Marisol's story as well as the school district's response on CBN News and FaithWire. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. That's all for Newsmakers. Thank you for watching, and be sure to head on over to the CBN News YouTube channel. That's where you'll find the full interviews you saw on today's episode. Plus, you can check out our daily Newsmakers podcast. We feature one full interview every single day. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. As for this show, we'll see you again next week.